Hello. I thought we would do another podcast episode. I keep saying just podcast. I need to add the episode along with it, but I thought we would do another episode. And I mentioned this in the last one. And so we're going to talk about the 1920s. I'll try to keep it, I'll try not to make it like a 6 hour thing, but but we'll see, because I do ramble a lot, and especially with the 1920s. Oh my goodness. Because we know about my enjoyment of gangster history. As if the movies weren't bad enough. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 1920s. I mean, 100 years ago, and I'm kind of surprised that other history, because I've looked around and I don't see very many people talking about the 1920s. I figured that people would jump on it right away as soon as to the, of course, yeah, but we were in lockdown, so well, anyway, well, moving on from that, I'm talking about it now. So this is the reason that I want to bring this up is because, yes, me being very history accurate oriented. Um, what I see a lot of times are people get so attached to certain things. Just like when I did the Newsy strike of 1899, what happens is you get attached to the movie side of it and the fan theories and all that stuff that you don't realize what the actual history is. So we're going to look at that. And and I may get very passionate because that's what I do. So the first thing is that I was seeing a lot, but like about 5 years before uh, the 2020s were going to show up, it was like, yeah, the 20s are coming and be prepared for the swing era. No, stop. When you're talking about music, the 20s was the jazz age. This is when like Duke Ellington showed up. This was the earliest that Louis Armstrong showed up. This is where the jazz clubs showed up. So no, it is not the swing era. That's the 30s. Ragtime was still popping up, the rag music and everything, Scott Joplin, and yeah, he was still making music in the 20s. He didn't retire or anything, no. But uh, the this jazz music, it it became a sensation in the 20s. So, and so no, you can't skip over like that. I don't know where it showed up, but no, the big band era was the 30s. Yeah, no, jazz age. That's the 20s. And yeah, especially Duke Ellington. One of my favorites is Take the A Train. And yeah, that's one of my favorites. And but oh my gosh, no. Uh, and I think Cab Calloway started in the 20s, very very early, and then of course he formed his band in the 30s. So but no, I can't emphasize it enough. No. Oh, good heavens. And it is called the Roaring Twenties because this was during a time. I'll try to find uh the document. I watched so many documentaries. There was a documentary that was done about uh the stock market crash. But at the beginning, it was talking about how everyone in the 20s was partying. I mean, they were spending like crazy. Now, stocks were different at that time. The stock market changed how stocks were distributed. Yeah, the whole idea of stock, they explain it better than I could and everything. So I'll find the documentary and post it in the description box. But yeah, people were partying like, I mean, even my great grandmother, bless her soul, I loved sitting and talking with her. She was a flapper, and she would talk about her flapper days, and she told me about some of the things that they did. And she said it was like a party every night. So, I mean, the concept of money, it was almost like it didn't exist to them. And so there was that. And then the stock market crashed. And then it was like, oh no. You, of course, had Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge, to be honest, he wasn't a terrible president. He just really didn't want to be president, but he did step up to the plate, and he was there was only one time where, when you look at the history books, he, I don't know what happened, but there was the Mississippi flooding at that time, and it was almost like he just didn't want to deal with it. I don't know what happened because he was dealing with everything else during his presidency. And but at that time it was like he just really, I don't understand. And I love his wife. They they had, his wife is the one, and I don't remember her name, but she had the pet raccoon named Rebecca. And but yeah, he preferred to be on a farm. And so a lot of times it was more he just wanted to be on the farm. And actually, he was sworn into office on his farm. I don't remember who was president before him. I used to know the entire list because we had to memorize that in school. But the president before him died suddenly, and I think that's the one where his wife found out he was cheating, and yeah. But so they went to his farm, to Calvin Coolidge's farm, and knocked on the door, and he was sworn into office. The other thing about Calvin Coolidge is he had two sons, and one of them passed away of a blood disease or something. There was like a blister that popped or something. Yeah, they were on the tennis court at the White House, and the blister got infected somehow, and it was just devastating. And he blamed himself for the fact that his son died. So, and everyone around him said that, yeah, he wasn't himself after that. I mean, yeah, when you lose a child, it's it's pretty devastating. But yeah, the only time that he just uh that I was upset with it, because quite honestly, Kevin Coolidge is my favorite president. He was known as the quiet president. There's this whole thing. It's in question if it actually happened. That this journalist, this woman journalist, went up to him and said, "I was challenged, or I made a bet with someone. Someone made a bet with me, or whichever one it is, that I could get you to say three words." And he looked at her and said, "You lose." So whether it's true or not, it's still a funny story. So yeah, he was a man of very few words. And maybe that's why I like him so much, is because he wasn't pompous, he wasn't loudmouth, he got the job done. except for that one time. And I don't know what happened there. But so that was the president during the time. Uh, and it reminds me a lot of, I was a little kid in the 80s and we always saw Ronald Reagan. And, you know, I'm not here to get political or anything, but that was just the thing is in the 80s, there was Ronald Reagan. Well, in the 20s, there was Calvin Coolidge. So, but anyway, so, but they had two dogs too. And I don't remember the name of the dogs, but it just, they were very creative names. I do remember that. But yeah, he retired and he actually was, I think he was studying to be a lawyer. I researched him and I have it written down somewhere. I should have uh, brought it over here when I decided, but I'll put more of his information in the description box and everything. But I love the fact that they had somebody actually sent them the raccoon for some reason or not. I think it was like a joke. And his wife decided to keep it as a pet. Name it Rebecca. Rebecca was on a leash. Everything. I love it. I think they had two at one point, two raccoons and everything. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I think that's one of the most unusual pets that was at the White House. And, because everyone talks about Taft and the cow, and it's like, that's not really unusual. I mean, not really. And yeah, he had two cows if I remember right. But anyway, so that was the president during the 20s. It was Coolidge and all that. Now, and yes, it was the Jazz Age. Jazz Age. And now, Prohibition. Yes, it was a thing. And I loved listening to my great grandmother when she talked about this because, she would say, "Oh, you guys think you're." I remember her sitting there one time and we were watching MTV, and there would be the Beastie Boys playing, "You gotta fight for your right." And she just rolled her eyes and she goes, "Oh, you think you guys are rebelling and fight? You don't know what that is." And when you think about it, she is right because you know having something like an everyday thing like alcohol taken away simply because nobody had done anything with it. It wasn't like, you had this group of women who were going around because I'm getting ahead of myself. So there was this group of women who were going around and just decided that they didn't like, yeah, this moral crusade, right? And they were like, yes, alcohol is bad and nobody should be drinking it. And it was like the cancel culture of anything that they don't think is, and so they decided that alcohol needed to be removed from existence. And and I'm sure we've all seen the picture of them with their signs and it says those who drink alcohol will never touch these, with some to that effect and all this. And they were these women from church, these religious women. And yeah, I'm sure a lot of you will say, "Oh, that explains everything." Well, yeah, you're pulling out of the Victorian era, and a lot of the Victorians, I've talked about it before, where they want to um, censor everything as if they've never had sex before because they have kids. So, please. I don't get it. Yeah, I grew up in a church and it's like they contradict themselves so much. My mom would be yelling at me and it's like she'd be like, "Oh, tattoos are bad." And it's like then you have to hate your dad because your dad gave himself his tattoos. So I don't understand what you're doing here. I mean, man. So, but anyway, yeah, these women were just on this crusade to get rid of alcohol. And that's what happened. This 18th Amendment happened, Prohibition, and and it wasn't like anybody was, and that was the thing that my great grandmother said. She goes, it wasn't like anybody had done anything to these women. They just decided to go on this ridiculous rampage against alcohol. And I remember in the late 80s, there was this woman, another religious nut, who she didn't like, she also contradicted herself. Married with Children, there was like this whole thing about Married with Children. And there was a particular episode in the lingerie shop. Well, this woman was watching the show with her child and she went off. And it's like, first of all, if you don't like the show, why is your child watching the show late at night with you? Why isn't he? Because he was like, I think 6 or 7 years old. The show was said specifically that it's not for kids. And she's having a meltdown. And so she's mad at the network for clearly stating that it wasn't for kids when they already said that. And um so she's trying to have the show canceled for clearly stating the obvious. And as far as I know, she's still trying to get shows canceled for, that she doesn't like. And she's like, I'm a moral crusader and all that. And the show actually was on the verge of getting canceled, and she actually helped it to stay on for several more seasons. So she shot herself in the foot. That's basically the whole point here. Well, so like for the entire decade of the 20s, there was no alcohol. And my great grandmother talked about how they would make the well-known bathtub gin and all this stuff. And she talked about all these different concoctions they would make. And I think there's another one that, another documentary that I watched where it's about Prohibition. I'll try and find it and put it in the description because I never know what is deleted anymore, but I'll try and find it and put it in the. And this guy that's talking, another historian, is talking about the exact same thing that my great grandmother talked about. How they would put like uh gasoline in there, and they became these weird chemists that were putting, because they were so, and my grandmother said the same thing. They were so desperate just for that high, for that buzz and everything. And I was like, but when I talked to my great grandmother, I was like, that's not good for your body. And she's like, we didn't care. We we honestly did not care. We just we just wanted a drink. And we were mad at at the government for taking away something that and I mean, and that's the other thing, is that there are pictures of politicians drinking during Prohibition. So it's okay for them to do it, but the average Joe can't do it. Yeah, these people are, and so you have like the speakeasies and that sort of thing, which oh my gosh, I just oh, and I mean, like, okay, the speakeasies and the police are raiding them, like, oh, this is bad, and I'm thinking, but there were other loopholes. Because there are pictures of like the Jewish community. They said that they needed the alcohol for their religion, and so there were a lot of people who would, and again, this is something that my great grandmother said. She said that there were a lot of people who were saying that they were, air quotes, religious. They would go to these lines and take these and everything because you didn't need documentation for this. You would just say that you were religious, whatever religion it was, and they would believe you and everything. Because oftentimes the person uh pretty much knew what you were doing, and so they would just hand it out. And there weren't any officers there that were making sure. Some did have officers. Others that were like a mom and pop shop didn't. And so, oh gosh. So, oh my heavens. Yeah. I I couldn't even imagine living through that time. So, but the idea of making this bathtub gin and becoming like amateur chemists or whatever you want to call it, and putting in anything from your garage and that could it could kill you, and just because you want that buzz. Another time when you find out, my great grandmother talked about how they would find out about the latest shipment, and uh, and they would go and and uh steal a crate or two. Just a crate, I'm sure, but because my grandmother liked to exaggerate a little bit on the numbers. She was an old lady. She liked to do that. When you're old, you can do that. But oh man. I mean, and I've heard in the documentaries how other people did that. So I mean, the fact that a lot of her stories coincide with a lot of the stories from documentaries and everything. It's and just because these people were on a moral crusade, and it's like, what did alcohol ever do to you? I mean, I don't drink alcohol. I really don't. Before I started taking, because when I started taking my medication, I did not want to mix the two. I just decided no, but I did drink a couple of times. I just didn't like the taste of it. I was like, how can people binge on this stuff? Nothing against those of you that like the stuff. I just didn't like it. No. I remember when I became addicted to Mountain Dew for a while, and it made me really sick. So now I'm addicted to I'm trying to cut back. I know this is off track a little bit, but I'm trying to cut back on my soda intake, and I'm actually doing really well. So gold star for me on that. Yeah. And but anyway, but when it's actually taken away from you, when the government just decides to step in and say no, you can't have that. Yeah, I would probably we'd probably be doing the same thing that they're doing. And so because that's ridiculous. I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, when you see the pictures of them taking barrels and pouring them down the the sewers, and I remember talking with her one time about that, and because I was doing a segment in history class about Prohibition. And I said, yeah, these pictures where they're just pouring these barrels and bottles down the sewer and everything. And she's like, yeah, I had a friend who we sat and we were sitting on the curb watching just all this alcohol go down the drain. And she said, and my friend said, so this is what the British felt like with the Boston Tea Party when they found out. I was like, that's a good comparison. Having all that tea thrown into the Boston Harbor. And it just, oh my gosh. It's a punch in the gut, really. So, so anyway, yeah, Prohibition. It happened. I'll try and find that the uh the documentary on Prohibition, because yeah, like I said, I don't know what's deleted off of YouTube anymore. but but now flappers. I've had my rants before. We're gonna talk about flappers. Okay. Now, flappers had been popular throughout Europe and over on the other side of the Atlantic. Let's just say that, because I have seen where there were um aristocrat, if I can say it. Dyslexia, don't do this. Aristocratic ladies in Japan who were dressed as flappers. And from my research, yeah, the flapper fashion swept through Japan and Asia, and a little bit through Russia, not a lot, but it did go through Russia. So, but it was already a fashion trend throughout the other side of the Atlantic. Through the late Edwardian, mid to late Edwardian era. So I don't think it really had a name. It just the trend was there. Um, Now over here in America, what made the trend popular was the movie The Flapper with Olive Thomas. I'm sorry, but everyone who says that Zelda Fitzgerald was the first flapper, no, let me, I hate to burst your bubble, but it says right here, she was dubbed by her husband, F. Scott Fitzgerald, as the first American flapper. That, okay, just because he said it doesn't mean you also have to realize they had a very troubled marriage. Oh my gosh. Uh, she was a follower, okay? She followed everything. She followed every trend. She followed all of it. And I have nothing against Zelda Fitzgerald. I feel really bad for her. But the point is that she she was actually kind of a bitch to her husband. And because there was at one point where she was in either rehab or the asylum, and she all of a sudden said that she had this book, and she sent it to the publishers, and it turned out that it was a book that he had been working on for 2 years. He's furious, goes to her and like chews her out, and she said, no, I still want to have it public. I mean, they had this huge fight about it, and I mean, that was practically his breaking point. So, I'm sorry. I refuse to accept, I disincline to acquiesce to any of this, because when when they're doing all it, plus every account having to talk about her says that she was just an attention whore. So, well, yeah, she was a follower, and then she'd throw herself out in the middle of the spotlight. So whenever something was trendy, she'd do it. And but she was not the first flapper. So I don't know what's going on with that. Ernest Hemingway hated her. Okay, he was really good friends with F. Scott Fitzgerald, and he saw what Zelda did to his friend. So stop. Seriously, stop. It was Olive Thomas, and unfortunately, she suddenly passed away. That Olive Thomas was the first to bring the fashion trend to America when she did the movie The Flapper. It's not rocket science, people. It's not that hard to fit the pieces together. So now I have said a billion times, because we will get back to F. Scott Fitzgerald and Zelda in a minute, but let's get back to the flapper thing. When it comes to flapper fashion, I have said before on this channel that I don't know where this popped up. There was a movie somewhere that the feather boa thing came up and people latched onto it. I have a folder filled with flappers and there's a bunch of fashion and everything else. None of them have a feather boa. That stupid I hate those French dresses. Somebody made a killing off of those damn dresses. Uh, Flappers don't wear those. They don't. They really do not. So y- you fell for Halloween City thing. I don't get it. It just if you can show me 15 pictures of flappers with that fringe dress and a feather boa, I'll stop colorizing pictures. I will stop researching. I will give up my job as a historian because obviously I'm doing something wrong. But I can tell you this, my great grandmother got so annoyed with people who would dress up as flappers and who loved the whole flapper concept and would constantly use feather boas. She said, "Do they not look at history books? No, they don't." Clara Bow and Louise Brooks. When you see those two, the most famous flappers. Now there's another one. She was a Mack Sennett bathing girl, Marie Prevost. None of them. And none of them are wearing any of that stuff. There's no feather boas, nothing. Oh my gosh. The other thing that really bothers me is like the pounds of makeup that you guys wear around your eyes. Okay. Uh, uh. So when I researched for the book that I just released, which does take place in the Edwardian in 1912, one thing I had to research was makeup. And I actually of all things, because I don't wear a lot of makeup. I think the last time I wore a ton of makeup was when I was dancing. But and it's something that I don't really pay attention to. So, but in the Edwardian era, when it came to lipstick, they had like three shades of lipstick. And by the 1920s, they added two more shades. And of course, it was just to make the lips pop. Um, when it came to blush, they didn't wear it a lot. Now, in the 20s, of course, because everybody was partying, they wore the blush a little bit more. As for eye makeup, eh, they didn't really wear eye makeup in the Edwardian era. I mean, maybe a little around the eyes, but not a lot. Not even the performers. And so in the 20s, look, I've colorized hundreds of these. They don't have like they don't. This is a Hollywood thing that you have fallen victim to. You're piling on pounds of makeup on your face. You know, you're putting on all this eyeliner and foundation, all of it. Well, the foundation, yeah, I can understand that one. But um when you're putting on all of this and you're putting on the weird neon colors and everything for the 20s, come on, guys. You're not doing your research here. When you want to do a photo shoot for the 20s and you're wearing like I don't I want it to be as accurate as possible, but okay, Theda Bara didn't even wear that much. No, I mean, look, if you're trying to do one that's of Conrad Veidt in Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, yeah, okay, wear a ton of makeup under your eyes. That's one thing. I mean, I mean, basically, when you put on that much makeup, you're like Lon Chaney with all the makeup that you're putting on. I think he was the one that put on the most makeup ever in the 20s. Man of a thousand faces, or in general. They didn't put on, not like today. No, I mean, sure, Max Factor was around, but it wasn't until makeup was more interesting to people. Makeup was not that interesting to anyone. I mean, you think about it with the Max Sennett bathing girls, and plus photos were black and white back then. And even with the autochrome picture, you look at all those autochrome pictures. Look at the lady in red that's on the beach. Does she have makeup? No, she does not. A lot of those pictures, they just, makeup just was not a thing to anybody. Oh gosh. I don't know how much more I can say. Uh, so, and I know there are people that are going to say, well, it's their photo shoot. They can do whatever they want. But when they want to make it as accurate as possible, and a lot of them do, they're like, this is my 1920s shoot. Look how accurate it is. It's like, it's not. Because makeup just wasn't a first priority. The other thing is that when it comes to, okay, so now we're going to go back into F. Scott Fitzgerald and all that. The Great Gatsby. Okay, I hate the book. I hate Great Gatsby. And by the time he died, he hated it. He wrote other things. You do know that, right? I can't look, I've read it and okay, but you do know that that book is about him and Zelda. And I don't know why you would do that, but whatever. But Anyway, so yeah, he wrote another one that was about him and Zelda's insane love affair and everything, and he put like their journal entries in it and everything. It's like, dude, why? Why? Oh, I don't. Anyway, but so the movie comes out with Leo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire, and they did like this. First of all, I hate the soundtrack because they used rap music instead of using like jazz age music, and that uh, why? Look, Beyonce has a beautiful voice, and she could have used. They could have used that, but they didn't, and that pisses me off so much. Oh, still makes me mad. So they have the gold lines of the Art Deco. Okay, Great Gatsby takes place in the early 20s. Art Deco didn't come around until the late 20s, moving into the 30s. Didn't come to America until, okay, again, America is late to to the party. Uh, always. We just are. I mean, that's just our thing. I mean, that's that's the huge issue I have with this movie. And it's nothing to look, I love Tobey Maguire and Leo DiCaprio and all that. I have nothing against the cast. I have a problem with the soundtrack, not with the people on it. I think they did a huge disservice to Beyonce because she has a voice that they could have used for the jazz age. The problem is that they did not research to use the art, like the whole art thing. No, they decided to use, oh yeah, jazz age. So there's like Art Deco. No, Art Deco is the 30s. Okay, we have the Empire State Building that shows that. Fuck, man. Why is it so hard? The story is set in the early 20s. Okay, and for everybody that's remaking uh these these dresses, that's great. I have no problem with that. When you're stitching these dresses together to look like the pencil dresses from the 20s, no problem. Absolutely no problem with that. I think that's great because, of course, it's a nostalgia thing and bringing all that back. But when you're using that Art Deco look with the lines and everything, that's not what they look like. It just shows if you're trying to push it into the dresses from the 20s and try to say that this is a rare dress from the 20, trying to, it's not going to work because the dresses from the 20s, early 20s, did not look like that. There were some that had like these beautiful patterns of like sunset and birds and everything. You need to go look. And of course, once uh King Tut's tomb was found, there was like this whole Egyptian revival that happened. Art Deco was not a thing until the late, and even then it wasn't on the clothing. It was not on the clothing at all. Oh. But this is the problem. People look at the movies and they think, "Oh, that's great." And it's not. It's not great. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. There were other authors. Agatha Christie was doing her thing. I mean, the ship that in Egypt that she would frequent. I think she wrote Death on the Nile on that uh ship that goes it's like one of those tourist ships and everything. Yeah, it still is running. Yeah, Ernest Hemingway is was writing and why does everyone focus so damn much on F. Scott Fitzgerald? Look, he's a great writer, but you focus so much on that one thing that he wrote. I think H.G. Wells was still alive. I don't know that he was still writing though. Yeah, because I remember he went and saw Metropolis and thought that it was childlike. That's only H.G. Wells can do, because he was kind of pompous by then. Yeah, I'm the father of science fiction. Yeah, because Jules Verne was dead by that point. And so I mean, it actually I shouldn't say that because they were friends. Unlike Pulitzer and Hearst, Pulitzer and Hearst were competing with each other, and Hearst, as soon as Pulitzer was dead, would say something like that. But no, H.G. Wells had all respect for Jules Verne, so yeah, I shouldn't say that. But before I have somebody down my throat. No, most of those authors respected each other. I think the cutest thing ever, well, adorable, I should say, not cute, but is Jules Verne was such a huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe that he wrote um a sequel to one of Jules Verne's uh stories. I can never remember which one though. I'm sure somebody will tell me. Anyway, back to the 20s. uh I mean, look, I don't like The Great Gatsby. I don't. I like F. Scott Fitzgerald. I feel bad for Zelda. I really do. You know, it just and I think that those two had a very toxic relationship and she was not the first flapper. Just because he said it doesn't make and Ernest Hemingway and a lot of other people who were friends with uh F. Scott Fitzgerald despise Zelda. And I think that was part of the problem with Zelda. And but the alcohol also didn't help. And see, that was the other thing. Where did they get the alcohol? Celebrities were able to get it. So yeah, this 18th Amendment was kind of flawed. But because Roscoe was able to get it, and yeah, unfortunately, that was kind of his downfall. And because his uh trial was in 22, I think was when it, yeah, because it was 100 years ago. But anyway, but there were other authors as well. So, yeah, there was a silent film. I guess that the trailer is the only thing that, which I didn't know that they did trailers back then, but the trailer is the only thing that exists anymore. I'll try and find it and put that in the description for you. And F. Scott Fitzgerald had a hand in it. Uh, so yeah, they did do a silent film for The Great Gatsby. It's just lost. But the trailer is what's all that exists now. And that's the first time I've ever heard of them making a trailer. So, but yeah, I don't like it, but that doesn't mean that it's the same thing with James Cameron's Titanic. Just because I hate it doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. It's a great work in literature, and it gives us an insight on what the 20s were like. So, I mean, uh, so yeah, before people really jump on my back about it. I can hate something, okay? Oh, good Lord. I know people don't like Gladiator. I know people don't like Newsies. I don't have a problem with it. Don't worry. Oh, good heavens. But if you don't like Rocketeer, then we got problem. Oh man. Okay, so moving on from that. So then we've got the gangsters. Yeah, we got all right. Yeah, it's funny to me that there are people out there that really think that the gangsters just suddenly popped up in the 20s. No, it's not how it works. There were gangsters in the Edwardian era. I mean, good grief. If you remember, or maybe I didn't mention it in the uh, Real Strike of 1899 video. Um, uh, Kid Blink, the real Kid Blink, Louis Batelli, he moved on to be the right-hand man of a gangster. And so I don't remember if I mentioned that in that video or not, but yeah, he went on to be the right-hand man of, I don't remember the name of the gangster, but and that would have been the Edwardian era. I think Kid Blink died in the 30s. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, so no, they but in the 20s, of course you've got Al Capone. The thing about Al Capone that it just cracks me up because with Al Capone, you got, of course, everything that he did, and he is sent to court for tax evasion. He goes to jail for tax evasion. Yeah, the thing about these guys is that they, for the most part, like the big guy, like Bugs Moran and uh, Al Capone and those guys, well, everyone knew what they were doing. They were able to keep their hands clean pretty well. So so there weren't any crumbs that went back to them, if that makes sense. So so yeah. Yeah, he went to and and of course you had Machine Gun Kelly. Not this is an actual machine gun. He actually held a machine gun. He actually used a machine gun, and that's why he was called Machine Gun Kelly. Okay. Not this guy who stole the name. Okay. I have a problem with that. But I have had people who yell at me. They're like, "Oh, he says that he took the name and blah 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 blah." It's like, I don't care. Okay, use your own name. Why can't you just be original? Damn, not that hard. Uh, if you didn't use it, if you didn't use the machine gun, then if you're not going to use one in your act, then whatever. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I mean, I've been to Alcatraz. I did the tour and everything. That was a lot of fun. And so I always I said for a long time that that was what kickstarted my interest in gangster history, but I'm pretty sure that it was Roxy and Muggsy from Looney Tunes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was them. Oh, who remembers them? They were they were my favorites. Anyway, so but I mean the thing about the gangsters is Like I said, with the speakeasies, they had like the bootleg, uh, so they were selling bootleg to each other, bootleg alcohol, and they were able to get the goods. Now, with Al Capone, he tried to show himself as this n- nice guy, the nice church guy. I think he was Catholic actually, but he was which he was still going to church, but I don't know why I worded it that way. But sorry about that. But anyway, so he was trying to show himself to the public as this nice guy. But the truth is that he was running brothels and casinos, and which were illegal. The casinos were illegal back then. I'm not sure where it holds up now, but because laws changed right and left, I just don't know. Can't keep up. But gambling, the casinos and gambling, of course, was illegal. Like I said, I can't keep up with. But anyway, so he had like tons of brothels and running all of that stuff, and at the same time, the bootlegging. And so he had all these different things going on. Same with a lot of these other gangsters as well. Um, there was one guy this one I just I find hilarious. I don't know why. There was a book in the library when I was in high school. My U.S. history teacher did like she pretty much started at the revolution because you only have a short amount of time to fit in all of this history and everything. So she started at the Revolutionary War time, but she spent way too much time on the Civil War. So then she was trying to go through decades. And she skipped the 20s. And she's like, well, if you want to learn the 20s, just do it on your own. And so I went to the library and I found this book that was about the 20s, and it had like 3 chapters on the gangsters. And I found one of the gangsters, and his name was Dean O'Banion. Dean O'Banion would he was the flower shop gangster. Okay, now he's in Chicago, and um the thing about Dean O'Banion was he was a rival to Al Capone and he, and one other guy, I can't remember the name, but he was shot and killed in his flower shop. Now, before that, he actually would uh whenever a gangster was killed, every funeral, he would make sure all the flowers were, he would do the flower arrangements and everything. Yeah. Convenient, isn't it? I guess there was one gangster, and I can't remember the name of the gangster, but he was like a mob boss or something like that. And you can correct me, of course. But there was like a mob boss that he that O'Banion made like this uh statue made of flowers. I found that really odd. It looked odd anyway. I mean, I saw the pictures and everything, and I just found that weird because it didn't look like the guy at all. I don't know, but anyway, he was shot and killed in his own flower shop, and they never really were able to figure out who killed him. It was just allegedly who killed him. So, but he was cornered in the flower shop uh and then shot. And But yeah, he was the one who arranged the flowers until all that. I just found that so funny. A gangster who is a who is a florist. And yeah, he's the one that sticks out for me. I think it shouldn't be funny, but it is to me. And of course, there's the the massacre, the St. Valentine's Day massacre. But anyway, but when it comes to the St. Valentine's Day massacre, that was one that was in that book, and that was the first time I had ever heard of the St. Valentine's Day massacre. And uh because I'm sick and twisted, and I just remember it just piqued my interest. And I've been researching it ever since, and watching every documentary that I can. What's interesting though is that I don't have any history books on it. I've tried to find history books on it, and I can't. But when I was on Alcatraz, uh, there's that one inmate who he was there like in the 60s. He had been like a teenager or something, and he was uh um and it seems like he's always there. This has like become his thing now. Yeah, he was there. He was doing a lecture or something, uh, and he's written several books about being on Alcatraz and everything. I don't know if he's still alive, but but anyway, so but yeah, that tour was really cool. I don't know if they let anybody there anymore. Probably not, because last I heard, uh, the it was not safe anymore, which I'd believe that. I would believe it. But I just I know that Machine Gun Kelly was there, and uh Al Capone. Yeah, we just talked about him. Al Capone was there. And what's funny to me is that when I read the comment section, which I know you're not supposed to do, but when I read the comment section, people are like, "Oh my gosh, that's terrible. They couldn't talk to each other. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do that." It's like, yeah, they are in prison. These are murderers. These are terrible people who did terrible things. Why should they get special treatment? I don't understand the disconnect here. Why are you wanting to embrace them? They could literally stab you in the back. And- oh my gosh. I ugh. They're in jail for a reason. And yeah, I remember one where they talked about how on certain days they could do like painting and that sort of thing. I mean, like there are people who are now wanting to they think that Ted Bundy was okay. It's like, no, stop it. Bailey Sarian is right. Get better role models. Stop it with this. Good Lord. Oh, yeah. And John Dillinger was in the 30s. People want to put him in the 20s. No, John Dillinger was in the 30s. And no, he doesn't look like Johnny Depp. I like that movie though. I have that movie. And oh man. And also, oh, I know I did the video for this, but I'm going to talk about it again. Is Bonnie and Clyde. Why are we romanticizing? I actually heard somebody say, "Oh, they're like Romeo and Juliet." It's like, no. No. No, they're not. See, this is another thing that's the problem is you've fallen victim to the whole, like the Broadway show and everything. They've put song and dance alongside these murderers, and this is what you're doing now. They killed people. Okay. Clyde was in jail, but it, like I can I make it any more obvious? And I mean, okay, Bonnie was still married when she took up with Clyde. Her husband was in jail, and when he found out the news, he was like, "Yeah, whatever." And that's they were gonna go down to blaze of glory, and he had no respect for her. He really didn't. And um, there's a documentary of from the 70s where the last surviving member of Clyde's uh, gang was released from prison. And when he was asked about Bonnie, he he didn't want to talk about her. Finally, he hesitantly said, "Uh, Can we move on?" So they didn't like her. I mean, she just, nobody, she, I got the impression with the research that I got was that she was just a sex toy to him. They didn't love each other. She just wanted the adventure, and he wanted the pleasure. I don't understand how you get Romeo and Juliet from, well, I said it in another one where it was they're oh they're two horny kids, so I guess. I, I suppose. Yeah, I guess I can see that. It's so irritating that people are just so fixated. Look, the Broadway show, I'm sure, is fine, but they could have used two totally different people, not two killers. I saw that they did a Broadway show on what's his name? Abagnale, that guy that they did the movie on Catch Me If You Can. Like he didn't kill anybody. He just committed fraud and stole from people. Still a criminal. Why would you do a Broadway show on that? I mean, are they just running out of stories to make Broadway shows? I don't understand that. I don't why would you I don't understand the Mean Girls musical. I mean, why would you glorify bullies? I but again, I didn't see the original show, and everybody seems to want to quote it to me, and I'm like, look at me. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Oh, quit doing that. Oh, so yeah, no, quit with the Bonnie and Clyde glorification. I mean, they killed people, and you seem to think that it's romantic. Yeah, murder is so romantic. What is with this? God, they should be canceled, not other stuff. Cancel Bonnie and Clyde. I'm not for cancel culture, but And yet here I am doing it. Okay. I'm contradicting myself. I'm so good at it. Anyway, where is this episode going? I have no clue. Anyway, so yeah, with that one, and I do. I mean, Bonnie and Clyde are interesting people. They really are. I have no doubt with that. Much like Dean O'Banion. I mean, gangster in a flower shop. What is? I mean, it's a great cover. It really is. Except I think the police knew. The thing about the police was that they knew what these guys were doing, right? They knew because they were in the gangsters' pockets. Why do you think the gangsters got away with so much? They really did. The cops turned away from so much that Al Capone was able to just walk around and do whatever he wanted for as long as he did. It was the tax evasion. Oh, and I love there was a documentary. Like I said, I watched way too many, but there was one documentary that I watched, and I love what the historian was saying. He's like, well, taxes were a brand new thing, and so he had just forgotten. And I'm like, screw you, man. Quit making excuses for the guy. No, it wasn't that it was a brand new thing or, whatever. No, stop it. No, no, no. You're gonna make excuses for this dude? Oh my gosh. You're just like the cops that turned their back on this guy that had blood on his hands. Like, oh, geez, they're still trying, man. It's like, oh, man. Oh, that guy should have been in jail a long time ago. And here he is. I mean, like, he went to Florida. All the pieces were there, and and everyone's like, "Oh no, he wasn't there. No, couldn't have been him. Not at all. Please, taxes were new. Give me a break." He's a good boy. He said, "That's a that's a good man." Oh man. Yeah. And then I mean, so, and now you have, stepping because I could talk forever about the gangsters. Like I said, I don't want to make this too long. You also have the silent films. Now, the thing about silent films is, of course, you have the flapper ladies like Clara Bow and Louise Brooks, and in Max Sennett comedies, a lot of those girls were flappers. And like Marie Prevost, I mentioned her. Gloria Swanson was uh, I she was a Max Sennett girl, but I don't know that she was a flapper per se. This is the thing also is I see this a lot and it's really annoying, really fucking annoying. Every actress in film was not a flapper. Okay, I swear to God, people want to post pictures from the 1920s and they want to say that every girl who was every woman, every girl, every young lady was a flapper. No. Damn it, no. Oh, holy shit. Not every. Uh, yes, there were flappers, and yes, there were women rebelling, but that doesn't mean that every single woman in the 20s was a flapper. Like, calm the fuck down. Oh, man, that's like trying to say that every person who wore black in the 2000s was emo or punk. And it's like, no. Because when I was working at Sears, we had to wear black. So it could be just a uniform. Whatever. You guys need to seriously chill out. It's like, oh my gosh, look, I learned a word. Oh man. Especially when you don't even know what the fashion is. There are seriously, there is a like a pamphlet or a magazine that went around in the 20s that was called The Flapper. And in one of them, there was an article that said how to dress like a flapper. And, and some of them said how to dress cost efficient like a flapper. And in one of them, Louise Brooks was an, oh my gosh. Anyway, so in the, with silent film, you do know that there are color film in the 20s. Now, there was one that I critiqued that was the Viking, and it says that that was, for some reason, they want to say that that was the first Technicolor film, and but that's long since been debunked. I think what they mean is that was for the particular processing that they used, because there was a lot of different processes that were used. They were experimenting with color back then, and because there was the Lumiere brothers with their autochrome and their color photography, and they shifted over to film. And so, because there was, of course, a Toll of the Sea, there was also hand tinting with Georges Méliès. So there was a lot of experimenting with color film. And so you have Toll of the Sea and with oh shoot, I can't remember her name, Anna May Wong. And that came out before The Viking. And there's also Ben-Hur, which was in 1925. That one has certain scenes that are in color. And of course, you have um, Phantom of the Opera with, again, certain color scenes. And I just did one, King of Kings. That one's Cecil B. DeMille's particular color scenes. So again, there were certain processes used for uh, this for film, and so film. You had the color film, and then the first talkie, of course, was Jazz Singer. It went into 1927. There were others. People want, for some reason, people want to think that talkies came around in the 30s, but they didn't. Don't forget, in Singing in the Rain, it was still the 20s. No, but they were They were trying to figure out talking pictures and sound as early as the mid 20s because some of the uh, some of the silent films that I have worked on had sound versions. Like, shoot, what was the one that I Three Musketeers, I think, had a sound version. I know it had a color version. That one didn't survive, which is too bad. The one with Douglas Fairbanks. And it seems like there was a sound version. Um, there's also uh Phantom of the Opera with Lon Chaney. And they did so many different versions of that. It was like they did the silent version and then they did a release of the sound version. And then they did like another re-release and I mean and then they released it again and then they did it was just, yeah, when I saw how many releases they did it was like just stop. Stop, you make my brain hurt. It's still a masterpiece though, love it. There was also that Louise Brooks one with Wallace Beery, Beggars for Life. And he actually sang. He did, there was like a soundtrack that they did. Unfortunately, the soundtrack doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, there were a lot of studio fires for some reason. And it wasn't just one of those where um or they melted down for World War One, the film for materials or anything. No, this was there were several fires as well. And but but yeah, he did a soundtrack. Soundtrack doesn't exist anymore. And so yeah, there were a lot of them that had the silent version and then a sound version as well. And so they were experimenting with sound, they were experimenting with color in the silent film era. There were also um there was a film called The Mobster's Wife that had Clara Bow in it. It's lost, which is too bad because this Clara Bow did all her own stunts. You know, you have to understand that in the 20s, there were a lot of times they were doing like three or four, just like what you see in Singing in the Rain, where uh you see like Gene Kelly's walking through and he's just going when he's talking to his friend and you see like three sets at the same time. Yeah, that's what they were doing. And you do like three movies a day. I mean, they had like 15-hour days. And so, which I know that doesn't seem like much, but there was one girl that uh, she had like almost a 20-hour day. It was like, I was like, are you insane? Barely get time to sleep. And, but Clara Bow did her own stunts. Louise Brooks did her own stunts for most of her movies. And so a lot of these ladies were doing her own stunts. There were some of the kid actors that did their own stunts. And like Jackie Coogan, Marie Eline, who I did a video on her and her sister. Yeah, she did her own stunts. And there was also a Baby Peggy, and she did her own stunts. Some of the stunts that she talked about were incredibly dangerous. Uh, but so and of course, uh, Hollywood was brand new, so they not like today. So the funding like it is now. And so the idea of a stunt double was kind of like, we don't need acrobats or anything like that. Lon Chaney did a lot of his own stunts, but when he got sick, they would hire someone and everything. So and and then of course you have Buster Keaton who just he did everything, you know. and and then you would have like you had like the Max Sennett stuff. And you know, a lot of people I have heard people question Max Sennett, you know, with the Keystone Cops was a fun little comedy thing. But with the Max Sennett girls, uh people have put into question that, and it's like, why? they were they weren't just pinup girls, uh an odd little pinup, because usually when you think of pinup girls, yeah, but they were doing movies and they could leave whenever they wanted. They could move on. Marie Prevost did. She walked away. she she made a big deal about it too. She burned her bathing suit and said, "I'm not coming back." and everything. So, but and he actually taught them business and how to deal with business and everything. And that actually helped Marie Prevost. It helped a lot of the other gals as they continue with their career. So it wasn't just one of those things where they were uh, something to look at. No, he saw them as intelligent and he helped them. I know that now that there's a Broadway show about Mac and Mabel, which, you know, to be quite honest, I think they would like that. Knowing them. But so that's one that I can appreciate. So oh good heavens. So but no, I mean the bathing girls was something fun. I mean it was unique, just like the Keystone Cops. And I don't see what the problem is with the bathing girls because it wasn't like they were seductive or anything. They showed fun little it was just it was fun. So yeah, I don't know what bee is in your bonnet, but no, I have never seen a problem with the bathing girls ever. And it's nothing. Look, if you want to have a problem with somebody, have a problem with Ziegfeld because he was I don't even want to get into that, but because he was a pervert, not like Mac. Mac Sennett was actually trying to help their career. They're just fun little pictures. I mean, you look at all the pictures and everything, and actually, he would bring in people like uh oh shoot, now I can't think of. I mean, he did have his favorites, you know, like Phyllis Haver and Mabel Normand and everything, but you know, like Charlie Chaplin was there, and he actually Bing Crosby started. I did that one, I Surrender Dear. Yeah. And and I think Buster Keaton was part of his yeah, was in his studio for a while and everything. And so yeah, but yeah, Ziegfeld was massive pervert. And Olive Thomas was a Ziegfeld girl for a while, and she had nothing nice to say about him because she was abused by him, and I think you'd know what other word should go alongside that. But anyway, but no, Max Sennett. I mean, Marie Prevost said at one point that she left. Max Sennett comedies because Max Sennett lost his creativity. It was more about money, but she still had respect for him. So it wasn't anything horrific or anything like that. But no, the bathing girls were something fun. They had like little contests. They did tours and everything. I've seen pictures of the tours. And Ben Turpin, that was the guy I was trying to remember. Ben Turpin. I knew it would come to me. And the guy that is always cross-eyed. And there's another gentleman, he was from Australia. He was an Australian entertainer. And he came over and worked with the girls and everything. And yeah, they were always out there. This So it wasn't like it was just the bathing girls. You saw them with other people as well. And so, but no, they weren't in like they were just in their bathing suits having fun. And so, but and the other thing that I do want to say is because not every girl on the beach is a Max Sennett bathing girl. I've seen that too. No, they're not. Not every girl on the beach. And calm down. Oh, good heavens. Oh, geez. But so I think I'm gonna wrap it up here before I make this too long. I think I've made it. I don't even know how long I've been going, but oh, good Lord. I tried to keep it short with the gangsters. I think I only mentioned two or three, but oh man. But I mean, like, yeah, for the most part, I mean, like, the 20s are 100 years ago. And I mean, like, my city is going to be turning 100 next year, and that's a big thing. It's a planned city, and so we're going to be celebrating next year, and that's big stuff. And but I mean, when it comes to stuff like the gangsters and everybody goes to like the Tommy guns and the fedoras, you don't even have the right fedora. And and everything else. And I mean, and the designs that you use. Look, there are plenty of pictures of actual dresses from the 20s that these women wore, and of the over dresses. And Art Nouveau was still in the 20s. It was still in the early and mid 20s and everything. Yeah. And and the music was the jazz age, not swing era. No. Oh my gosh. Take the A train. Duke Ellington. Louis Armstrong. Yes. Oh man. I don't know where it came up that the swing bands were that's the 30s. It, I don't Prohibition was a thing. It really was. People were because there was like this huge crusade to get rid of anything that yeah, it was still going on. And and of course you had like the big scandal, I've already talked about it, was um the Roscoe Arbuckle. Roscoe Arbuckle was this huge star and he fell because of one party that he had. Yeah, the 18th Amendment really wasn't really working all that well because politicians and celebrities could still get alcohol somehow. And yeah, wasn't really working all that well. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. I keep saying yeah, I'm sorry. I'm repeating myself. Like Green Day says, we're living in a repetition. And of course there were other events like St. Valentine's Day Massacre. That was the big one. I think that overshadows everything else, really. And it really does. I mean, that's the one that people remember more than anything else. I mean, when you talk about the 20s, there's people say, "Oh yeah, Prohibition and Flappers and the St. Valentine's Day Massacre." There's Gangsters and all of that. I mean, do they even know about Roscoe? I mean, the idea of Roscoe Arbuckle is starting to show up now. I've seen some videos made about Roscoe Arbuckle, but I mean, that was like the first huge scandal in Hollywood. Some people have tried to say that um, Olive Thomas's death was the first scandal, but I don't see how. I don't. I'm. I have tried to look at that because what happened was she and her husband, Jack Pickford, were. I almost forgot his name. Yeah, so she was married into the Pickford family. So she and Jack Pickford were in Paris. And from all accounts, it just seemed like she accidentally overdosed on barbiturates. I mean, Jack truly loved her. He was devastated when she died. And I didn't like how Mary Pickford treated her. Everything that I have read on how Mary Pickford acted towards that showed her to be an actual bitch. And I'm not going to hold back. I mean, if you're a fan of Mary Pickford, that's totally fine. But first of all, Mary Pickford was absolutely controlling when it came to her siblings, and especially Jack. It was like she wanted to choose who he married. And when he married Olive Thomas, she was nasty to Olive Thomas. And it was like Olive Thomas didn't do anything to her. And the Gish sisters rarely said anything about any other uh, star that they worked with, but there was one time that Lillian Gish said that Mary Pickford was just horrible to work with. She was a terrible person. She said, and especially when it came to her brother Jack, it was like she had to insert herself into his marriage, into his first marriage. It was like by the second marriage, she backed off because his wife made her back off. Pretty much. Um, but I mean, yeah, Olive Thomas was a wild girl, but that's no excuse. So she's saying all these terrible things about Olive Thomas. And then it was like after she died, she was like, "Oh, she was a wonderful person, and it's just too bad that she died," and blah blah blah. And it's like she was such a total hypocrite about it. And so yeah, I have a I when I was reading that, I was just like, okay, wow, man. So, but yeah, I felt bad for Jack on that whole thing because he truly did love Olive, and then for the media to say that he killed her. Like, what? There's a thing called accidental death. Whatever. It's just really sad that she passed away. You know, why would someone who was so madly in love with his wife just no. I don't believe for a second that he did that to her at all. I mean, they had an argument, yes, but newlyweds do argue. This is no doubt about it. Oh man. And especially when you have a controlling sister who thinks that she is right about everything. Yeah, whatever. Anyway. Oh my gosh. And again, if you're a fan of Mary Pickford, you can disagree with me. I'm not telling you to agree with me at all. This is how I feel about it. Just like you can disagree with me on how I feel about Great Gatsby. You could say, oh my gosh, you're blowing it out your ass, lady. But anyway, I will look for those uh, documentaries of Prohibition and of the stock market crash. I highly recommend you at least look at the first part about it, where it's talking about how people would, when it talks about the stocks before the crash and how people would treat stocks and all of that. And because yeah, people just weren't really aware. They were just partying all the time and spending like crazy, and that's one of the reasons the stock market crash happened. So and the way that stocks are now is completely different, and it's because of the stock market crash and how people were uh anyway, I think you get the idea. And I will also look for the trailer to that has survived of The Great Gatsby, so you can kind of get an idea of what the movie would have looked like if it had survived. And yes, F. Scott Fitzgerald did have a hand in it. I don't know that he was like a director or anything. I just, it could be like he was just overseeing or something. But anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and just close up here.